Welcome back to the Kingdom Digital Podcast. Today is a special one because I have my first guest on the show, and not just any guest, but someone that I really admire and enjoy working alongside doing kingdom work. Pastor Lawrence Williams is the visionary lead pastor of Higher Purpose Church. And he's not only passionate about the gospel, but also about trying out new things in digital ministry and trying out AI for ministry. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We will talk about how he is using it for his ministry and how you can do the same. And whether you are tech savvy or not, I hope that this conversation will inspire you to explore. And let's jump right in. Pastor Lawrence, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Marsha. I appreciate that gracious introduction. I hope I can live up to the hype, but I enjoy working with you as well, and I really appreciate the honor for being here.
For sure, this is two nerds working together, right? So that works well. Let's start with your story. How did you first get introduced to AI, and what led you to explore AI for your ministry?
Yeah. It's hard for me to remember exactly where I first heard of AI, but I do remember hearing about ChatGPT as the one that everybody hears about, right, in the background. And so I'm bivocational. I work for corporate as an engineer, and so that part of me is the part that was like, hey, what is this about? How does this work? What are the opportunities? And so at work, they actually had an initiative where they wanted everybody to learn more about data. And so they created a data camp thing for us to get involved in. And so that's how I really first got, I'd say, hooked into using AI. And then I went to a church workshop, which said, hey, you can actually use this in church as well, which kind of blew my mind because I wasn't even thinking about that until that workshop. And that's kind of what really got me started on this journey.
That's interesting. So, many church leaders, from what I'm hearing in the church world, are kind of opposed to AI or don't know exactly what it is. What would you say to pastors and ministry teams that feel overwhelmed or even maybe suspicious about AI?
Yeah. Well, as with anything that's new and different, there's some unknowns, and it's easy to be afraid about the things that we don't know. And so, for me, I would say if you have suspicions of AI, some of them I think are legitimate. I think there are some things to look out for. So I don't want to sugarcoat that AI is just a perfect panacea. But there are obviously a lot of benefits and value in AI. And so the key is, this is a huge elephant. I mean, there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When we say AI, those two letters represent a vast sea of things. So in terms of being overwhelmed, don't feel like you have to eat the whole elephant, right?
Right.
Put your toe in the water, right? See if the water's fine, see what you like, kind of put two toes in. And to be honest, that's what I have been doing. And that's how I've been slowly starting to get more and more involved until I've gotten to the point now where I'm really going all in. I probably need to talk to somebody about that, but nonetheless, what I've seen, I like, and so it's been a good journey so far.
That's awesome. You just mentioned that there are some suspicions that are legitimate. What would you say are those?
Well, first, AI is man-made, right? It comes across as human, but and a lot of the AI agents and software out there are free things. It just seem like, hey, it's really great. But because they're man-made and because they're free, you should be suspicious, because one thing I will tell you is if you're going to use AI, for instance, like ChatGPT, and if you're going to use it often, I would recommend a paid account. Here's why. Somebody is paying for your account. And if you don't pay for it, it's the advertisers that are paying. And so they are buying your information. They're buying your chats, your prompts, and they are diving deep into your mind to say, hey, how does this person think? How does this person behave? So they can actually start marketing and pushing things to you. So if you don't have a paid account, keep in mind, every time you put in information, you're basically telling the algorithm how you think, what you believe, what's important.
Wow. I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, you should be very careful. And so if you get a paid account, they're supposed to protect it. That's how you reserve it. It's supposed to have a little more privacy. So that's one of the things that I would say we should be thinking about, right? Another thing to keep in mind is it's man-made. It's gonna do weird stuff. It's not
Mm.
perfect. AI can hallucinate. I can tell you when I first came into an hallucination, I asked it to give me some kind of perspective on something. It came up with this beautiful story. I was like, "Is that real?" And it said, "No, actually, I just made that up. And if you didn't ask me, I
Wow.
probably wouldn't have told you." And
Wow.
so there's a number of things you really got to be
Yeah.
careful with.
Yeah, I've definitely encountered those too, but that's interesting about the data and yeah, the regulations around it, right, are still hopefully coming together. But that's a good one. So have a paid ChatGPT account.
Yep.
Have you
Yep.
encountered any pushback from your team or like resistance from people? And if you have, what did you tell them?
My team already knows that I'm a little bit out there anyway, so they were just like, "Oh, here he goes again, something else," right? So I would say my team has not pushed back, but I have heard pushback from other pastors, other ministry leaders, and again, there's lots of concerns. I mean, one is there's the person on my team that was initially really afraid of AI, and they're like, it's doing stuff again I don't understand.
Mhm.
It's and so my argument was, listen, the train is coming, right? The
Absolutely.
train has left the station, and you have an option. You can get on the train, you can get in front of the train, right?
Mm.
I find it's better to be on the train because I don't like getting hit by trains. Um, and really starting to learn and get involved so you can really see how it's evolving and the like.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of fear about,
Mhm.
losing jobs. There's lots of
Yeah.
fear about, taking over different things. And I get that. And there's some legitimate founded fears for that. But
Yeah. So even the jobs within the church world and the ministry teams are changing, right? So everybody kind of
yes.
has to be able to use it. So how is Higher Purpose Church using AI currently in ministry?
How
I
much
know
time
there's
do I have for this answer?
and I'm part of the team, so I'm not gonna spoil it.
Yeah, we're using it. I use AI in my sermon preparation. I do the sermon prep. I take AI to give feedback and help, that kind of thing. As you know, we use it to think about ideas for helping maybe to generate some images or things like that. I've found it very helpful to organize thoughts. One cool thing happened. I'm bivocational, so sometimes things get ahead of me
Mm.
or I get away from me. And I remember one morning I had to teach a class with my leaders, and it wasn't until that morning I was like, "Oh man, I haven't done this." So I took my notes, just verbally recorded them, fed it in AI, which organized it, created a PowerPoint. Then I spoke to it, recorded it as a video, presented it that day. I mean, literally within hours, I had a whole course. And the great thing is I can use it forever. And one of my leaders tapped me and said, "You did that this morning, didn't you?" And I said, "How did
Yeah.
you know?" He said, "You're wearing the same shirt." Right? Um,
Should have changed your shirt.
should have changed my shirt. I could have got away with it. But it was really amazing how quickly and how
Mhm.
effectively it was organizing and putting that together. So those are some of the things we're using AI for. And there's probably a number of other things we're doing with it as well. Oh, one other cool thing. I just released a bot. So I trained a bot and I gave it my teaching on leadership and how we do some initial 90-day plans. And then I told all my leaders, hey, everybody create a 90-day plan, talk to the bot. So if you missed a class, you forgot, it can help you walk through it. And seems like I got some pretty good feedback. What did you think about it?
Yeah, Planning with Pastor Ellis, the name of the bot. It's amazing. It really like even for an outsider, it gives you the immediate like the vision and mission of HPC of Higher Purpose Church and just the understanding. So it's kind of like SOPs in there that you don't have to explain, but you have another team member or another worker that explains it, and then it's just very at your own pace. It's very conversational. So it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really cool how you did that. Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
cool. I was wondering, have you encountered anything yet that like really, really surprised you in a use case for ministry? So anything in AI that you hit and you're like, oh wait, we can use this for ministry too. Did you have like a moment like that yet?
I had a few. which is how I got jumped into the deep end, right? So, I'll tell you the one that just blew me away. So first of all, I'm old school, old fashioned in a lot of different areas. I try to stay on top of technology, but my phone had just been outdated when I started learning about AI. I said, okay, I need to get a new phone. And because I knew there was some embedded AI apps. And so I got a new Samsung, which gave me the new Gemini artificial intelligence. And I just started playing around with it because we do every 3 years, we look at what's going on in the community, what's going on in society, and what do we as a ministry have to do to adapt to change.
Mhm.
And so we have a whole annual, a year long program where we look at what's going on there, what is God leading us to do, how are the changes happening, which will adjust our strategy. Well, normally we would spend a lot of time breaking out in teams, doing a lot of research, talking to a lot of different people to get all of the needs. We bring it back together. We come up with a strategic plan. I asked AI, hey, I'm trying to develop a strategic plan. How should I prompt this? It gave me a prompt, went to Gemini. It's when I entered the prompt, it said, I'll get back to you. I'll let you know when I'm done. You can close the app now.
Okay, Gemini.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, what is this? So I left the app open and it
Mhm.
was telling me what it was doing. 45 minutes later, it said, I've been scraping website 403. I've pulled all of the data together. It created a 23-page white paper that listed all of the needs in Mooresville, the town that we're in. It scraped our website, looked at our strengths. It did a SWOT analysis and then said, here's a recommended, series of things you guys should look at. And then it said, do you want an audio summary? Which I said, let's try it out. It said, I'll get back to you when I'm finished. About 30 minutes later, it had two AI voices doing a podcast on what it found. So it summarized everything. And I was so blown away. So, yeah, that happened.
So the get back to you later is, from what I've learned so far, is the agent mode, right? Where now AI, especially with ChatGPT 5, is able to like go out autonomously and do the work for you, like without you prompting it again and again, like just giving it a goal, which you did, and it
Yes.
went out and script everything. That's amazing.
It,
That's amazing.
it,
It's like another team member, right?
that's the exact way I think to think about it, which is absolutely right. It's a very capable team member, but you have to train it, right? You have to explain, give it the goal, give it the context. You got to give feedback. Some people get frustrated if it doesn't give, results exactly like you expect. Sometimes it's not helpful. But yeah, if you train it, you take time with it and you work with it correctly, and it's really powerful.
Let's talk about limitations.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you think AI could not do or should not do for ministry, especially when it comes to leading people and leading a church?
Yes, for sure. AI cannot hear from God concerning what
Amen to
his
that.
will is, right, for your life, for ministry. One of the temptations is to outsource, your prayer time and devotion to AI,
Mm.
which in my Bible is a good definition of idolatry, right? And God says, hey, I will not have any other before me, right? And so I think it's important to recognize you mentioned like a team member. It's a great way to
Mhm.
think about it. Hey, God has called me to pastor, so I have to hear from the Lord. I have to, wrestle with the text and the prophetic word and the vision and the insight. And this is really just a helper that works alongside to help clarify, to bring research. And so I think the key is never losing, giving up your prophetic calling uh,
Mhm.
to the AI machine would be the thing I'd say it just cannot do and has limits to. Um, we also need to be careful as well. I've been playing around with some things on how it can help to coach team members. I've been exploring some thoughts, but we got to be careful with the boundaries that we tell it. Like, don't give advice outside of a certain realm. So if
Mhm.
somebody considering suicide or whatever the case may be, probably should put some bounds and say, be clear, don't comment or reference that we need to talk to someone else. So just to make sure it stays safe, I think that's something we're gonna have to wrestle with as we go forward.
Yeah, yeah. And as much as it can be used for good, it can absolutely is already in everybody's hands. That means also in the hands of the bad guys. So it can
Yes.
be used for bad as well.
Right.
Um, What do you think are some simple ways that like a small church team can start exploring and trying out AI? What are the tools that you recommend starting with?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would so I started out with ChatGPT. I got a paid account. It wasn't until later that I got into the Gemini piece. And by the way, there's AI wars now. So
Oh yeah.
every week somebody releases the new Gen 16.5 that does this
Hmm.
better, and they're trying to one up each other. So at the time of this recording, Gemini is the best on the market. But what I would recommend is, one, if you're going to be serious about trying to learn, get a paid account with one of them. You could do this one of two ways. You can just create a list of activities. What are the things that you have to do that you don't like to do? Any repetitive task, and just prioritize
Hmm.
them tasks, and let AI teach you that.
Hmm.
It's really great to say, "Hey, I just don't like writing emails. Can you help me with that? How can you do that?" And it'll walk you through it. Um, so to me, that would be the best thing. The other thing that I did, that this was another mind blowing moment. I was just playing around one day, and I just said, "What can you do for me?" And
Hmm.
because I had already chatted with it a bunch, it said, "Well, I know you're bivocational, you're a pastor, you're an engineer. I can help you save time. I can help, with scheduling." And it blew me away with some of the things it could do, which I didn't know. And then I said, "Well, let's try that one." And it walked me through it. And so that's kind of how, piece by piece, I've started to do more and more as well.
That's amazing. I love that you say you can learn from it, let it teach you, right? Not just like tuning off our brain, but like using it as an extension. So, like, even teaching you better ways, right? Like teaching you time management and things, and that the tedious task, doing those
Right.
for sure. Now, this is something that really I think a lot of pastors and leaders will struggle with
Mhm.
or will kind of have arguments against each other. How do you balance tech innovation with spiritual discernment? So you just said AI cannot hear from God. But how do we balance? What's the healthy balance there?
Yeah. So first, I will say, so this year, praise God, we will have celebrated 20 years in ministry. And
Fantastic.
I am very grateful that AI wasn't out there when I first got started,
Mm,
because it may have been difficult to balance. I will say, after doing ministry for a while, really having some habits and systems of really studying text and really wrestling with things, it's helpful. And to be honest, I this is where I one of the challenges, I think, if you're just getting going, it's kind of hard to really know necessarily how to balance. But the key is, I think, being clear almost in your job descriptions. And again, I love your point about looking at AI as an assistant, as a team
mm,
member. Your job description is hear from God, right? Get the insight. AI is to clarify, right, and help assist and organize. And I think if I were getting started now, I would have to be really clear about what's in my job description, do that first, then delegate to AI, and to do that second. That would be how I would do it. 20 years in, I'm pretty comfortable with what it is that I need to do from week to week, and
mhm,
really flow, and what to delegate. Also, how to fact check, because
mhm,
sometimes
yes.
AI, like I said, with the hallucinations and everything, I'm like,
Mhm.
first of all, that's not in the Bible. Secondly,
Absolutely. I was just thinking that. Like even the Bible verses, when I pull them up for some kind of reference that I want to make, I
yeah,
always double check because I never trusted that it's actually, wait, did it actually say it right there? I have to like double check the version and everything because it's just so important to be rooted in the word. So,
right,
because the hallucinations can get you when you don't know your words. So
right, right, right.
definitely. Yeah.
Yep.
And I have seen that sadly there are AI sermons out there now that
Mhm.
that sound like they're preaching the word but they're really not. Things like you are your own God, with a small g and all those kind of things. I mean, it's horrible. So definitely
Absolutely.
out there.
Yeah.
Um are there any tools or platforms you would recommend?
So obviously, GPT, as we
Mhm.
mentioned, is pretty popular. Gemini right now, but something else that I just started working with is really good, and that's Notebook LM.
Mm,
Now, I will tell you that has been profound, because I'm working on a sermon series right now, dealing with work, and I just say, "Hey, I'm interested about this whole concept of quiet quitting and how it interacts with this." And so I went to Notebook LM, free account, and just said, "Hey, What can you tell me about this? It went out to the internet, found 10 solid sources from Harvard Business Review, Gallup polls, and all that, pulled it together in a summary, did an audio thing, kind of like I mentioned earlier, like the summary it did for the research for the community. And within 30 minutes, I really got up to speed tremendously on just the whole quiet quitting concept and what it means and what are some statistics around it. And so that's another one that from a pastoral, from a preaching, anybody that teaches anything,
Hmm.
doing background research, strongly recommend that as well.
Notebook LM. Okay, we'll
Mhm.
have all the for the listeners. We will have all the links to all the everything that we mentioned in the show notes today. How do you see? Because we just talked about agent mode, right?
Mhm.
AI being autonomous, going out and doing the work for you, just having one goal and then just doing what it has to do without actually telling you what it's doing, coming back to you after 45 minutes. How do you see the role of AI evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? One of the words that comes to my mind right now is super intelligence, which
Mhm.
is kind of like you just mentioned, all the companies are racing for. So
Right.
you think that will be there by that time?
Yeah, yeah. So I got a balanced response to this. There's good and there's bad, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
we're in the garden of good and evil. But so if you think about this on the positive end, I see AI helping smaller churches to get much more effective and impactful in a short period of time, because right now the technology is here such that whether you're full time with a whole staff of researchers, right,
Mm-hmm.
you now or part time, on your own, the field is kind of leveled because from a insight and a research standpoint, it's there. Some of the organization of the sermons and the like is just, I think so. The quality of ministry, I think, is just going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to go up as everybody gets on board. On the flip side, I do see from the ministry us having to be very clear about the limitations of AI, what it
Mm-hmm.
can't do, what it shouldn't do. Honestly, one of the things I worry about is as these chat bots become more human-like, and we're seeing evidence of this in different places. People are starting to talk to these like they're real, and it's people having like AI girlfriends and boyfriends,
Mm,
and and people are getting detached from reality. I
yeah.
could see us having ministries designed to just help people root themselves in reality and God's word and community with others, because I see AI becoming so addictive and so effective and kind of pulling people away. So on the positive end, I think we're all going to become better at what we do. On the other end, I think we're going to have to become much more rooted. And it's going to require us to make sure we go back to what has God called us to do, right? Love the
Mhm.
Lord with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love our neighbor as ourselves. And I think that's going to, that genuine community piece that helps keep people grounded and rooted is going to be much more important as we move forward in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I believe so too. The human connection will become so much more valuable, right? And you just said it. You said the playing field is leveled. But what do you think about the job changes, especially in ministry as well? Do we have to brace ourselves or change any sort of training in ministry?
Yeah, yeah. Now this is the part that is not going to be easy to hear. But again, the train is moving, right? So
Yeah.
AI is coming, it's here. And we hear companies in corporate already saying that there will be job losses from AI. So, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. So I don't know if people will or will not lose their specific job to AI, but I do know this: if you don't use AI, you most likely will lose it to somebody who is using it.
Hmm.
And so it's one of those, get on the train, right? Learn how to use it, et cetera. One aspect from ministry standpoint, as from a ministry piece, obviously we can't afford to pay the salaries that compete with, corporate
Hmm.
America and the like. And so it enables us to get a staff, right? Where we can get things done, and without having to, try to figure out, are we going to pay to do outreach or, staffing and the like. So I think that's one of the areas that is coming, good and bad. But from the job side, I will say, if you are using AI, if you're proficient in AI, you're better positioned for the
Hmm.
changes in the marketplace, right? As opposed to, I can't spell AI, then that's probably a problem.
Right. What do you think about those who are maybe in a different generation, pastors and leaders who kind of feel stuck between technology and tradition, right? Because they want to keep their tradition. Do you maybe have an experience in your, friend circles like that?
So in 2019, our denomination had a meeting. Our group had a meeting, and people were arguing: should we go online? Should we use social media to broadcast sermons?
Wow. In
It was
2019.
it was a,
Wow.
we had some older folks, and they were just convinced that we were like, people who go online was cheapening the gospel, and the Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourself together in this virtual thing.
That is
And
so interesting.
and the superintendent got up, said, listen, I'm not going to tell you if it's good or bad, if it's right or wrong, but I can tell you this: there's millions of people that are online right now.
Yeah.
And if I told you that there were millions of people that was on this corner that passed by, and you're
Mhm.
trying to preach them with the gospel, would you not go there?
Mhm.
Now you could argue about, is it right or wrong if you want, but if that's where people are, I'm suggesting you go after them. And he kind of left it at that.
Mhm.
And then you know what happened the next year with COVID, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately,
We had to.
some of the churches that never evolved don't are no longer open,
Yeah.
right? And so, so my long story to answer your question to, those that might be older and might not feel comfortable, what are you called to do? If you're called to reach people, people are here, right? If you're
Mhm.
called to make a difference, this is a tool that enables us to do it.
Mhm.
And while we don't know how this thing is going to change and how it's going to turn, it's our responsibility, I believe, as men and women of God that God has entrusted with the church, to be as impactful as possible.
Mhm.
Paul said, "I've become all things to all men
Mhm.
that I might win some." He says, "I don't care if you are under the law, if you're not under the law. If you believe in me or not, I'm gonna
Mm.
do whatever I can, use whatever tools I have to
Yeah.
reach them." And that's kind of how I feel like
Yeah.
with AI.
And he preached in the marketplaces, right? Where like people were just walking by, people hung out. And I think I said that the other day in one of my episodes, that that's the place where we hang out now.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
times you can't find your friend, but you'll find them, on Facebook or Instagram or something. So,
Exactly.
yeah, definitely go where the people are. Awesome.
Right.
And maybe for older leaders that are not comfortable using it themselves, just finding someone that can do it for them. Um,
Yeah.
right.
That's what grandchildren are for.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Get
Awesome.
youth involved. They can teach you for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, with that, want to wrap up and thank you so much, Pastor Lawrence, for being here today. You're officially my first guest on the show. Very grateful for your insights. I will also leave more information if you ever want to visit Higher Purpose Church or follow them online. If you want to know anything more about what we mentioned here today, all the tools and all the links will be in the show notes. Make sure you leave us a comment and your thoughts on AI in ministry and subscribe to the channel. And we will see you in the next episode.